Okay, so here we are. We're going to start with lesson 1.1, solving equations. Okay, so this is new and the quality of the videos are going to get better as time goes on. Still trying to figure out how to do all this. But in the meantime, here's how you solve equations. Now, what is an equation? Let's start with an equation like x plus 15 equals, actually, let's make this a little better. I don't like the way I drew that. Plus 5 equals 15. This is what we would call an equation. Both sides of the equation have to equal one another. Now, at this point, I have to point out, right, that this is the left side of the equation, and this is the right side of the equation. And what I mean by that is that x plus 5 has to add up to 15 at this point. Now, the reason why I split it up as left and right is because a lot of students get this concept confused. Right here, a lot of times when you're removing something from one side, you have to understand that this is balanced right now. But if you remove the 5 from this side, right, and you don't remove it from the other side, the equation becomes unbalanced, right? And we're going to see this throughout the equation, right? So we're going to start with one-step equations. Like so. We're going to start again, let's see, like this, right? And we're going to start with x plus 5 is equal to 15. Let's go ahead and, okay, let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, so here we have our original problem. Now, how do we solve it? How do we figure out what x is? Well, the first thing we have to do is look at the operation. So what operation is being used? In this case, it's addition, right? It's a plus sign. Well, in order for us to get rid of this, we have to make sure that x is by itself. Currently, x is not by itself. On the left side of this equation, we have x and a 5. So we want to make sure that the left side of the equation only has the x in there. So what do we have to do? Well, that 5 is a problem. We have to get rid of the 5. So if addition is being used, we need to do the opposite. So what's the opposite of addition? Subtraction. So here I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. Remember the whole left and right? Well, whatever you do to the left side of the equation, you have to do to the right side. Okay, so here in this case, oh, I don't know. What did I do? Okay, there. So in order for us to do whatever we do to the left side, we do to the right side. So in this case, I'm going to subtract 5 from the left side of the equation, and I'm also going to subtract 5 from the right side of the equation. So here, this is going to cancel out because 5 minus 5 is 0. So really, I have x plus 0 going on is equal to 10. Now, don't get confused. I only did this right now because that's what happened. But we don't, whenever we have 0 by itself like this, we don't actually need to put it. So I'm going to rewrite my equation to say x is equal to 10, right? So what we did here was called inverse operations. As in, we did the opposite. That when I said opposite sign. So if that plus was originally a minus, I would have added 5 to both sides. Right? So whatever it is, you got to think what's the opposite, right? So the opposite of addition is subtraction, and the opposite of multiplication is division, right? Just so you guys know. If I say something like, what's the opposite of addition? I don't want you guys saying multiplication or division. That's not the opposite. But, we'll get there. As far as this is concerned, this is the first kind of problem you're going to see. Another kind of problem that you're going to see is two-step equations. Okay, so here for two-step equations, what happens if your equation looks something like this? 5x plus, I don't know, 25 is equal to 50, right? Okay, so first thing you have to do is you have to recognize that something's going on here. All right, this is different. That 5 is called a coefficient. What that means, it's a number in front of a variable. Whenever you have a number in front of a variable, like the 5 in this case, it's called a coefficient. This is important because sometimes I'll use that word, or you'll see that word in your packets, and you need to know what it is, right? So whenever they say coefficient, they're referring to the number in front, right? And when I say in front, I mean really in front, like it's attached to that x, right? So for example, 5x, what it really means is 5 times x. In other words, 5 is multiplying by x. So it's not the same thing as you're not adding it. It's not the first part of the number, right? Like if I add a 0, if x becomes 0, my number doesn't become 50. It's 5 times 0, which means the whole thing becomes 0. Right? That's just an example of what to do. So why don't we go ahead and solve this here, right? We're going to go ahead and solve this. 5x plus 25 equals 50. So we're going to go ahead and do that here. This is my original, right? And then here we need to do the inverse operation, which means we need to identify what our operation is right here. If you notice, there's two operations going on here. There's the addition, 5x plus 25, and there's multiplication, 5 times x. So in here, we have, let's see, we need to identify that addition is our first operation. For the purposes of this video, you need to understand, sorry, that was bugging me. I didn't do that right. Okay, you need to understand that we always want to get rid of the addition or subtraction before we get rid of the multiplication, as in the coefficient. The only time you're going to have division in one of these is if you have a fraction, and we're going to deal with that later. But for now, right, we have to remember, right, there's two sides to the equation. There is the left, and then there is the right. We need to do inverse operations, so we need to do the opposite. We have addition going on, we have to subtract, and we're trying to get rid of the 25 because we want x to be by itself. Right? So if we take away 25 from both sides, remember what do we do to the left side, we do it to the right side. I have to do this before I do anything else. So right now I've set it up. Okay, minus 25 from both sides. The 25 minus 25 cancels out, and I bring this down here, so I'm left with just 5x on the left side of the equation, and on the right side of the equation I have 50 minus 25. So 50 minus 25, we go ahead and put that in our calculators. We put 50 first, subtract 25 from it, and we end up with positive 25. If you end up putting 25 first, you might end up with a negative number. So be very careful when you're putting numbers into the calculator. If you get a weird number, try it again, reverse the numbers. Sometimes that works. In this case here, okay, so we have a 5x plus 25. I'm done, right? No. Here we need to recognize that 5 is multiplying by x, okay? So in order to do the opposite, we need to divide both sides by 5. So I divide this side by 5. Notice I did the fraction, right? Here I divide this side by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is just 1. So I end up with a 1x is equal to 25 divided by 5 is going to be 25. Put that into the calculator first, divided by 5, we end up with 5. Now here you have to be very careful. Yes, I have a 1x and that's what I want, But if you notice, that looks weird, right? I think most of you guys have seen it or you remember, X is always by itself. Um, every variable always has a coefficient. If they don't tell you what the coefficient is, it's always going to be 1. What you're more used to seeing is something that like this, X is equal to 5, which is actually how I prefer it to be shown. I'm okay if you put the 1, if you like need it there to remember that there's it represents 1X. This and this are the same thing. Um, to save time, we don't put the 1 in front of any of the variables. If the coefficient is 1, we generally don't put it. You can put it if you want in your work, and I'd be happy to see it on there, but know that it's not always necessary. If it helps you, go ahead. So hopefully this helped. I'm still getting used to the whole recording stuff. So hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully I can keep bringing you these videos. If you're still confused as to what to do, um, write down your questions and then ask me during the designated times to meet up. For math, I believe it's from 10 to 11 a.m., but I will also have other office hours throughout the day for you guys in case you have questions about the homework. Homework and classwork has already been posted onto Google Classroom. Good luck, guys.